it's quite a challenge to condense 17 years of my life here in Portugal in 15 minutes, but I will try my best and try to focus on the challenges that I've overcome to be where we are today. So I love this picture here. I know that the slide is a bit messy, but we've got some interesting things going on here. That's myself and my husband having a discussion on the day we were launching our first villa at Martinhal, and that's him up on a digger looking at the site in Martinhal years ago now. So the story starts really with us arriving in Portugal in 2001. By this point in time, I'm from Singapore originally, of Indian descent. Born to South Indian parents, had my school education in, you preferred me to stand here? School education in Singapore, and then I moved to London to pursue my undergraduate degree in electronic engineering. After a degree in electronic engineering, I wanted to move into the business world, and I did 6 years with Pricewaterhouse, as it still was at the time, qualified as a chartered accountant, and then I did my MBA at the London Business School for 2 years. And it was during my MBA, I had met my husband in my last year at Pricewaterhouse. He's from Zurich, he's Swiss German, and we wanted to do something for ourselves. So you could argue that, yes, my background, my father was an entrepreneur, but he always told me, go for the corporate life, don't become an entrepreneur. So, however, he did make us dream big. The fact that he had 4 daughters and 2 sons was interesting, because he's from South India and lived in a very conservative society, let's say, when it came to women's education and especially working. While the south of India, people believe in education, they at that time didn't necessarily believe that a woman should be out there working or starting a business. However, I must say I'm quite lucky. People ask me, oh, you did engineering, and we still struggle to have women in engineering. But he made us dream of becoming Margaret Thatcher or Indira Gandhi. He used famous role models for us. So, and I feel very lucky to have met my husband as well, because I did not have to have the suffragette problem of having to make myself heard. His mother was a fighter for women's lib, but not very aggressive. And I think he got the best of both worlds, and he allowed me to rise within the organization. We see each other as partners. And so I must say, I just wanted to make that point, that if you surround yourselves by people who, promote equality, I think, it's easier to move forward. Yes, we have to, of course, fight for our rights in some cases. But so we arrived in Portugal all those years ago. The challenge at that time, I don't want to call it a challenge, actually, we found an amazing country. EU infrastructure funds were pouring in. We called it the California of Europe at the time. And we said, we're going to start a business here. And this is the house we bought back in Lagos. It's the first house we lived in. It was a small townhouse. For the price of this, I think we could have bought a broom cupboard in London at the time. This was amazing. We started our business in the garage right down there, and we assessed various projects in the Algarve, which was going through, it's quite different to today. If you cast your mind back to 2001, we were 3 years from the World Expo happening in Lisbon, 15 years of being part of the European Union, and highways were being completed from the east to the west of the Algarve, and north to the south as well. Faro Airport was doubling its capacity from 4 million to 8 million passengers a year. But we saw all the amazing things that were about to happen, and Portugal was a lovely country. People were very nice. English was already widely spoken back then itself, and so made a great case for international tourism. And that's how we started. We didn't, it makes me laugh today when people say, oh, is Lisbon a good place to invest now? We invested in the corner of the country, and Europe. I love this image because it shows you that we weren't just in the corner of Portugal, we were in the corner of Europe. And that came with its own challenges. While we saw amazing opportunity, there are other parts of the story that were difficult. So we started with this. It was a plot of land with an alvarado lotimento and an old, I don't know whether it has a laser, but if you look carefully, right in front of the beach, you can see an old motel called Os Gamzinhos. Many people, actually, Portuguese people, remember Os Gamzinhos from the old days. So it had, you know, a good base, an área de construção to start with, but we wanted to build something interesting, not just holiday homes, because that was an alvará from 1987. We wanted to build a touristic village with facilities, much more sustainable approach with an interesting landscaping concept. We were given the indication that it would be an easy aditamento, but if you speak to anyone in Portugal, any developer in Portugal, they do not like aditamentos because it's actually a lot of work, but we'll come to that. So one of the challenges I'd like to talk about is selling something with nothing built. That is something we all entrepreneurs face at some point, right at the beginning, especially of our journey, that we have to sell something with nothing built or not even a product in place sometimes. And I found that quite challenging. And this picture, explains exactly what we had to do. We had to build this a contraption to actually show people what the view would be like from their living room and dining room. So, sometimes we have to get props. That's a very young husband of mine back in the day, Roman. We both have aged since, obviously. That was our office, you can see a little bit messy, but that was, one of our first architectural plans for a house in Martinhal. So, real estate is interesting because it actually takes quite a long time to get things into reality. Again, we had to go through the hard work of making those architectural plans into these houses with very little awareness of Sagres. Sagres was known at that time to the Portuguese as a cold and windy destination, and it had 1 month of tourism and nothing more. So we were developing a 5-star hotel and resort from scratch. So we did go through a lot of difficulties, but we had the first prototypes finally between 2002 and 3 to show what we meant. High-end houses with heated pools, underfloor heating. People were laughing at us at the time saying, why are you building these in Sagres? Quinta do Lago or Vila Moura is where all the action is. But yes, we started with this. We had to start also with the capital we brought to the table, and all the land was much more expensive as well on the other side. So, apart from falling in love with Sagres, I think that this was something we could take as a whole development and start. Other challenge, yes, all 4 are my children, all born here in Portugal. We started a family in 2002 as well, at the same time as we started our business. And I remember several times when I was pregnant or carrying babies and actually doing the sales in a little hut. I mean, I have many more pictures to share, but no time, unfortunately, where, they'd be in my baby Bjorn or in a pram, and we'd be selling real estate to potential people. We didn't have many staff. There's 1 staff that started at the end of 2003 for us. Till then, it was just Roman and myself. I put this picture up because it's not very often I put this picture up. It doesn't show me in a very nice light. It was the day baby number 3 was born in the hospital. I don't know how Princess Kate looks so gorgeous coming out of hospital after the birth of a 3rd baby. That's how I looked. After 7 hours in heels. I can tell you I couldn't move for, especially after my first baby. I had a very tough birth, and don't want to go into the details, but I couldn't move for 2 weeks after. So I totaled it up for these kind of presentations: 36 months of pregnancy, 54 months of breastfeeding, and years of sleepless nights. And that's literally what I went through between 2002 and 2012, especially until my youngest was 2 years old. But we had to keep going. Persistence and hard work are probably the 2 things that I could say, when I think back to those years that, kept us through, and having the vision at the end that you are going to make this resort happen, come, hell or high water. So we got then to, between 2004 and 7, we got to the next stage. We started selling villas. There were good years in the Algarve for real estate sales. The other half of the planning was going through planning changes, the aditamento. This half, we had to get started to get some money into the company. So, we divided it into 2 phases. But guess what happened in this year? So does anyone remember these pictures from 2008? Can anyone tell me what it was?
Lehman Brothers?
Lehman Brothers, exactly. So for those of you who are too young to remember Lehman Brothers, it marked the collapse of the global economy at that time. And it was September 16th, 2008, when things really went crazy. It started with a subprime mortgage crisis in America the year before, but things just got... So on one hand, where we had lots of buyers, lots of banks willing to give us money, guess what happened after this? It all changed. The world changed. And guess what we were doing? We were having to continue and lay the first stone the month after Lehman Brothers collapsed to build the second half of the resort in completely different circumstances. But we had to keep going. We couldn't stop, and we had to keep things together. And that involved a lot of hard work to keep the buyers who'd already bought with us on side. The banks, financing dried up. And again, the tips there were really, we kept it quite conservative on one hand. I know it doesn't sound like it when you see this big resort being built. We took 25% deposit from buyers instead of the usual 5%, so we didn't have speculative buyers, and we didn't give the clauses which would enable them to flip the property. A lot of buyers wanted that, and a lot of agents were saying, why don't you, include that clause? Because we didn't want flippers, we didn't want speculative investors, we wanted investors that would stay with us in the long term, and that helped a lot. So when I think of tips, what can I take one element out of? At the same time, we had to attract people to our team. Come join our team, it's the recession, but don't worry, we're here, we have liquidity. Well, we had to manage liquidity very hard. Cash was king, and we had to be so careful with it, but at the same time invest in people, in marketing. You have some of the first people we employed here back in 2000, between 07 and 09, maybe half that team is still here, but that's the way it goes, especially in the hotel business. So building publicity, we had to have lots of information sessions and events to talk about our resort, still with nothing there, CGIs, and then building demand. This shows the number of unique visitors on our website back in 2005 versus 2016. I take this as a sort of measure of how many people know about our product or searching for our product or are on our website. And this is, we had built it up to 800,000 by 2016. So, but you see, how long it actually took us. Filling the resort was another issue in Sagres, where people thought we were cold and windy and good for 1 month. So building awareness. To date, we've had 3,000 articles written about us somewhere in the world, but that comes with effort. We have a PR strategy. We bring people, journalists from all over the world to come and experience what our product is about, especially because we're in a niche, in luxury family hotels, and that helped. Our positioning and branding helped, that we focused on families for the luxury end of the market. So we weren't just another hotel that had opened. Delivering service, it's a hotel business, every day, apart from talking about it, we had to train our staff, fine-tune the product. Most people are used to a normal hotel business. We had to teach our staff to deal with the extra touches that were important to us, and day in, day out. I lived on site for 7 years. People think it's a paradise. Yes, it was a paradise, is a paradise. But living on site in your business for 7 years is what it took us actually to get it to where we wanted. And I can tell you, my stomach problems that I have now are probably a lot to do with those years as well, living on site 24/7. And building revenues, profits, paying back the bank. I mean, do I have to go into this? It was a constant battle balancing and growing revenue. But we grew the revenue, which enabled us to pay the bank back. 2010 shows less than 5 million, 2017 forecast over 30 million. But the 30 million wasn't from one resort, of course. However, I'm proud to say in Sagres alone, our hotel trade, we bring in 20 million euros a year. But through true grit and blood and tears, it's not easy, okay? This is excluding real estate sales, which is another. Growing the brand after having built up Sagres and proving to the banks that we have never defaulted on a single interest payment nor on a single leaseback payment, we then got to see other opportunities where banks owned non-performing assets that were on banks' books, and we could discuss taking over these assets with some equity. Obviously, we had to inject some equity. They would lend us the money, but then turn them into performing assets which would pay the interest back and decrease the loan, deleverage. So, but this is, I think, the hardest part of all of this is maintaining a balance. And whenever I talk to female entrepreneurs, this is especially hard. I think dads are very capable of, reading newspapers when the kids are, there's a nuclear fallout happening, they're fighting and they're killing each other. But mothers who are entrepreneurs, I think, take it all to heart. But we've created a business around this. I know the challenges of working women who have children and what they need in our hotels. So, it's sort of, I take this as an opportunity, knowing myself how hard I have to work at keeping healthy. It's a daily challenge. I trained myself to run 5 kilometers from nothing. If you know Singaporeans, we're not sporty at all. But these are some of the pictures that you see from my personal Facebook post where, I'm going, this one, just finished week 4, day 2 of C2 5K. It's a great app, by the way, if you ever want to start running C2 5K. But these are the daily challenges we have, spending time with our kids and getting to the next place. So that's 15 minutes. I'm sorry, I've probably run over 20 minutes now. Yeah, okay. That's sort of a quick view of some of the challenges and what we've done to get over those challenges with our business. And here you have my contact details if anyone wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn.